Hello everybody, thank you for coming to the Woodcraft demo for today. Today we're talking about projects you can do with a lathe, in particular two projects we're talking about. Where you're talking about the pump and grind Peppermill and the little cigarette lighter. Both of these projects call for us to drill through the blank. So how we do that is we have a blank in a chuck just like this, and we have a drill in a Jacobs chuck just like this. This chuck goes, this goes here. And then all we do is bring this in for our drilling. It does it right down the center of the axis for the turning. And this blank we're using for our demo today for the pump and grind, the blank needs to be 3 13/16 inch long, which is good because from the tip of this cutter to the base right here, it's 2 1/4 inches. So what we do is we drill down here, take this out, flip it around, and come in the other side. Since we're using a piece of wood that's square, we've measured it, this chuck is going to hold it in the same place. So we can drill through and the holes will line up. And it will look just like this, where you can see all the way through, or just like this. This is the blank that the finished blank for the cigarette lighter, and this is going to be our blank for the pump and grind Peppermill. What we're using here is called a jam chuck, and the jam chuck works by a cone goes in the hole. We have a 6-degree cone here, and now this is going to line up right down the long axis. The nice part about a jam chuck is I can do different size projects just as long as the hole here is less than the diameter of the opening, but they line up perfectly. Same chuck, same thing. What you do want is it needs to be soft wood. It needs to be softer than the wood you're using, because this is nothing more than a wedge. A wedge splits wood very well. But if this is harder than this, then this will deform first before it breaks this. So it makes a great jam chuck. You just grab it in the jaws, go down to the cone shape. I like to use about the same. This is a 60-degree here. This is probably down a little bit more, but something that I can get to both sides of the turning. Another thing about what we're doing, this can't be too thin because we are going to make a device that looks just like this. This is the pump and grind Peppermill, and it's designed to fit in our hand and powered by thumbs. Now, if you look at your hand, you will see that when you go to make a grip, this opening here is much smaller than this opening up here. You'll also see that back in the palm, that's much deeper than this and this. So if you want to have something comfortable, you need to kind of mimic that. On this handle here, if this was straight, this would be a solid blue line, perfectly parallel all the way down. Here you can see that it's thicker up here than it is down here, so it fits really comfortable like this. You'll also see that I've got this bulge in the middle. That's going to line up right here. So when this is in your hand, it feels very comfortable because I've taken the shape of a person's grip into account. It's much easier to do. You can straight wall, but if you want a little bit more comfortable and more stable, and what I mean by more stable, we're actually pushing this down. These fingers here are keeping it from going down. If they were spread out more, they'd have a hard time doing that. So you always want to have a little taper, more taper here where the bottom fingers are going to go. It doesn't matter which hand, grip is the same. So this is what we're going to turn to make this. Now, I've already drilled a hole in this, 1 inch in diameter all the way through. When I did it, held it in the chuck, halfway through, flipped it over, put it in, and it lined up, no problem. There's the hole. When we open up our kit, this is exactly how it comes. So what we want to do is take this off. And now we want to take this piece out, and this is screwed in back here. So we're going to hold this and just turn it. Okay. Off. Now, we've got this metal piece here. It's very important to us. That goes over here. We've got this. This is a two-piece unit. This top just pulls right off. This is what gets screwed in. This, for the spring, one side is straight, one side is cupped. The cup side is at the back, and that keeps the spring from going through. Now, this is very important. This is easy to miss. When this comes out, there is this little washer right here. And most people don't see it, and they hear the dink when it hits the floor, then you can't find it. So this little washer goes over the threaded end. Okay, we'll set this aside. And so we're going to turn this. Now, doesn't matter which end is which. We're going to bring this here, lock it in. We want to put a little tension on this. Make sure that's that, and give it a little push. We don't want to put too much pressure in because remember, this is a wedge. I got a wedge here and a wedge here, and it really wants to break this. So we have to be gentle with them. So I'm going to start off with a carbide cutter. And this is the round carbide cutter. And how we want it, if this is pointing straight up, this edge of the carbide should be right here. And this is where it is with the tool rest, so it cuts right there. Speed. This is fairly good right now. I've got it at 2700. Quite frankly, I'm happy with that. So let's do some. So now I've got a round cylinder. So I don't want this to get too thin. I want this to be strong enough to hold the pepper grinder without cracking. So what I want to do is I want to be very careful here. I want to turn these. To do that, I'm going to take my time. We're going to use a spindle gouge. So I like to do the ends first, and then I work on the middle. So I'm going to bring this forward a little bit more. And all I'm doing with is I'm just turning the corner. Now, this is where I decide what I want to be the back front. This is going to be the front, this is going to be the back. And the reason I do that is I like a little blunter shape up here and a little more taper shape here. Now what I'm doing now, when this comes together, there's not a lot of space on this shoulder right here. So I'm just looking at that. It's perfect where I want to be. It's a little tiny bump up above the jam chuck. This is a little tiny bump above the tailstock. So this is good. Both of these ends are good. Now, this is my center. So this is going to be the top. This is going to be the thickest part. And all I'm going to do now, just come right on down here. Same thing for here. We'll take the pencil mark out. Okay, now I've got this piece. Now I've got to sand it. Now, what we're going to do, a little sanding pack. And we're going to do about 320. We don't need to go wild and crazy because we don't want this thing to be slippery. Move this back. Now remember, the only thing that's holding this on this end and powering this is friction. Looking pretty good. I've got some lines here I need to take out. And sandpaper is cheap, so we use a lot of it. Eventually, as you're using sandpaper, you're going to get to the point where it doesn't look like it's cutting anymore. That's when you just want to grab some more. Now you can also, if you want to, if you've got something sharp, you can cut some lines in here. You can use wire and you can burn the lines in. You can add decorations. You can add texture. All these things are open to us. Another thing I like to do after I get done with this, I like to turn the lathe off, and I like to sand this way by hand. The reason is these put lines, as the lathe will put a line in. We're really good at seeing patterns. I want to break up that pattern. So all I need to do is just do this, and those lines will disappear. Now this is 320, and usually when you're doing turnings, unless it's really, really rough wood, you can start at 200 or 300. It really doesn't make that much difference. 150 in this environment is going to be really aggressive. That's like 80 grit in a normal thing. You can see this is working real well for us. Wipe up the excess. Take a look. Now this is where magic happens. So for a high-speed friction finish, we want a high speed. This is where this smock gets dirty because this is where this can come back at you. So you want to make sure when you're putting a finish on, a friction finish, that you've got glasses on, your clothes are protected. The more we use this product, the more gloss we're going to get. Now, we want to go to a different side of the cloth and put another coat on. The nice part about a friction finish, the heat of the friction dries this really quickly. We don't have to wait the next day or anything like that. And what happens is the shellac in the new one dissolves the shellac in the old layer, and they keep filling the pores and filling the pores, so the surface gets smoother and smoother and smoother. Little buffing. Now the only thing about these you have to watch is just keep them mixed. So you keep shaking it. How much is enough? That's all up to you. I like to do this about 3 or 4 coats. Now, once this is dry, and it's dry now, if you want to, we can put a wax on here. We can keep it nice and refreshed with a little coat of wax every month or something like that, just to keep it buffable. But here's our beautiful red heart blank. So we'll let that sit for a minute. So now we have to put this in the pepper, and we don't want to lose fact that this is where the pepper comes out, and this is where the grinding mechanism is going to be. So how do we put the epoxy on? So this is going to rest here like this. I do not want any epoxy in these grooves because it would prevent this piece from coming on. So I've got to put this on in such a way that the epoxy is going to go this way and not this way. So to do that, I've on the inside. If I come through this way, I'll push the epoxy down. If I put the epoxy on the inside and I come in this way, I'm going to push the epoxy back in deeper. So that's why I want to do this. Think about what you do, because if any epoxy gets in these threads, that's it. It's a waste of time, because you won't be able to get it out, especially if it hardens. So what we're going to do is we're going to put epoxy on here, and we are going to bring this up. Now, what I highly recommend is the way we're going to do this now. I've got to worry about just this end, because this is where I'm putting the epoxy, because I'm going to push it through. So I'm going to leave it there where I know which end is which. This is one of the neatest things with sliced bread. This is a pad of paper that's resistant to epoxy seeping through. There's 100 sheets. So places to mix epoxy on. So this is what we're going to use, and then when you're done, you just rip the piece of paper off, throw it away, and you got a new one up there. What I'm using to mix this stuff, to put on here, this is Barrel Bond. This is a gel epoxy, okay? This is a 5-minute set, and they say 5 because they really don't mean 6. It's going to be a great system. It'll hold it very, very well. Little is more in this case. So what I want to do, equal amounts. A little scotch there. A little scotch there. Now, as it is right now, I can come back tomorrow. They'll still be there, and they won't have done anything. As soon as I start mixing, 5 minutes. So here we go. What I'm using to mix it with is a little silicone mixer, polycarbonate mixer, rather. And epoxy won't stick to it. So when this is all said and done, I'll just flex it and the epoxy will pop right out. Epoxy's going to go right in here. I'm ready for it. Pull it back. Lose sight. Don't go crazy. Just put some epoxy right on the inside. I like to just do one side at a time. Okay. And this is one of those things where we really don't have to get it all done at once. Okay, so what I'm going to do is take this, push this down, oops, knock it down, and now just needs to sit. Now for this other one, just the opposite. This one I want to put the epoxy on the ring, because when I put it in, I want this epoxy to come up and give me a perfect seal right here. But to do that, I can't use much epoxy either. And I might have enough here. Again, don't think that you've got to get every little metal surface with this. As long as you've got it in 2 or 3 spots, you're going to be good. You can see that I really didn't have to sand the metal. Look around the sides. I don't see any big bubbles coming out. This is even down there. That's it. 5 minutes. We'll be able to go to the next step. If you're doing the cigarette lighter, it's really a nice little lighter. You're going to do the same thing. You're going to take a little piece of wood, you're going to cut it to length. In this particular case, that length is exactly 2 inches. The hole that you're going to drill through here is 22 millimeters. That's this size. Straight through hole. Now this particular one, you can go all the way through, or if you hold the wood in the chuck, or if you want to, you can go part way through, flip the other side. It doesn't matter with this one because here to here, you know, like I said, it's 2 1/4 inches. That blank is 2, so it'll pop out. You'll have a through hole. I don't like to come all the way through because a lot of times you'll get tear out with these. So even though it's a small one, I'll normally do halfway and come in the other side, and that way I've got a nice clean hole all the way through. Once you do the hole, it's just like we did here. It'll go just like this. And now I can turn it. I do the edges. I do the same thing here. Now, it's not mission critical since this is so small that you follow the grip. You can do a straight or you can do a little barrel. I think a barrel is a more pleasing shape. So I always keep this just a little bit higher. Now here you see, one of the things I like to do is I like to put these lines. A really sharp tool, make the lines, and then I turn the lathe up to high speed, fast as it'll go, and I take a piece of wire and I'll hold it in here, and the friction will cause it to burn. These black marks don't come out. Better than paint. Always be there. And then I'll sand it after I've made the marks, because these is going to generate so much heat that a lot of times you'll discolor the wood right on either side of this. So if you sand it after you put those in, it takes that away. You get a good looking blank, and it doesn't matter whether you're using a wood, solid wood, or a laminate like this. I like them. One of the things that I'm turning over the years that I really like this, and this is all by hand, just by eye, and it doesn't really matter. This one's a little bit narrower than this one. These are pretty much spot on, but it really doesn't matter. It's just part of the whole design. Look at different wood, but this is Dynalux, and this is like a plywood. It's layered, but then under pressure they force resin into the whole structure, so it's incredibly hard. It's incredibly stable. So this doesn't expand or contract like this does. I like it. I think it's pretty. It takes the finish very well. This wood right here is just a beautiful piece of scrap wood I had in the shop. Actually, I got it from the trash can in the shop. So I'm really not sure what the wood is, but it looks pretty. So projects like this are great for all that scrap wood you have in the shop. These are really nice to give to people. Now, with this just slides on. You normally put epoxy on here to hold it in place. The only reason I didn't is because I wanted to show you what this is. This just screws on. You have to have access to the bottom because this is where you put the lighter fluid. But this puts pressure. You'll see that this doesn't turn now. It's like it's epoxied in place. And if you put lighter fluid in it, it will light. So these make great little gifts too, little projects. This doesn't take you 10 minutes in the shop to do. Put it on, You wait longer for the epoxy to dry in a lot of these things than it actually takes to do it. But basically, this is put the pepper corns in here to grind. So we needed access to the front. We've got that. You see there's no epoxy up here, no epoxy in the threads. Here, this is where the plunger is going to be. And again, epoxied in place. It's not moved. There's really, with epoxy, there's no reason to go wild and crazy because it is going to hold. An epoxy is such a good holder. That's what they use to hold the heads of golf clubs on the golf club shaft. It's a great product. It expands and contracts with the wood. So if you used a CA glue, CA glue is a beautiful glue, except it doesn't expand and contract for anything. See a CA glue fail within 24 hours, glue something together and set it outside on your deck. But the next day when you come out, the glue will be broken because it just is a thing to use with this. CA for pens because it's in your pocket. It never gets exposed to the elements like something that you might take this outside to use on the grill, and sometimes I forgot to bring something in if I got distracted. So this will hold up very, very well. So to put this together, we're going to take the grinder with the washer here, and we're going to push it up through here, out this hole. Okay? Just going to cut my hands over this to hold it in place. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the spring and put it on. And that's in there. Now what I like to do now is hold against, so this pokes through. Now I can see the threads. So now I come to this. Put this on. Now I'll just screw this in until it won't go anymore. There we go. Again, before you do this next step, put your peppercorns in here. Now the top comes on. And you have Peppermill. And that's it. That's how easy it is. The wood is red heart. Great project. Especially if you're still quarantined and you're going crazy. This is a fun project to do. If this over time starts to get dull, a little wax in there, buff it off. It'll last a good long time. So here's two neat projects. They both work very well. This is the Dynalux 2. So there you go. Easy. So hope you guys are doing great in the quarantine. Hope you try this. It's fun to do. You just make a jam chuck, make it out of basswood. It's one of the softest woods there is. That's why carvers love it. And 60-degree cone. You can drill the holes if it's too long a piece to do it, because normally a Forstner bit's about 2 1/4 inches from tip to tail that we can use. This is great. This is 3 13/16. Flip it over. I did them for both. It's a piece of cake. You'll notice that this is a little thicker. This is mine. I made this for me. This, I've tapered the top a little bit more. I've tapered the bottom a lot more than this. You can do a little, you've got some wiggle room, not a whole lot, because remember, wedge, too much pressure, it'll pop. So you need the kind of the structure of the wood to help hold it together. But even with those, you have some operating room. So here you can see that they're beautiful. The only thing they have in common is they're the same length. The shape is the same, a little bit wider here than it is here, a little generous slope. But I brought this up a little higher, brought this down a little lower. So try it when you're turning. you can, when this is here, when the lathe is off, and see how it feels in your hand. The nice thing about this is you haven't glued it yet. You can always, guys, the ladies like a center grip. Whoever is going to be using most of the cooking and using this, make sure they're happy with the grip. But there you go. Thank you all very much.